Alright, it appears that we are now live. Hello, my dears. Thank you for joining me today as we read through Chapter 5 of The Last Unicorn. So, before we do, I just need to do one quick thing on my Twitter account to let people know that I'm live. If I can properly access. There we go. Right. There we are. So, as I said before, we will be reading through Chapter 5 of The Last Unicorn. And this time around, I decided to play a little bit of ambiance for us in the form of some nice fireplace, pardon me, ASMR or ambiance playing in the background. I felt it added a nice, cozy environment to the stream. Now, I shall light some incense for us. This time, I will be using the cone of pine incense. So, pine is a great cleansing incense. It is a bit on the masculine side, but if people are a bit concerned about using sage for the multiple reasons that people might be avoidant of using sage, ranging from its endangered status to the cultural locations of it. This pine is a wonderful substitute for that. Oh, I see we have a first time chatter in the chat. Masked _2611. Hello, my dear. Thank you for joining me. You've caught me right at the beginning. So, I am about to light this pine incense, and then we will start reading Chapter 5. This one seems to be trying to be stubborn. There we are. Ma'am, could you please summarize the chapter or the story before chapter 5? Well, of course, my dear. So, in the story The Last Unicorn up to chapter 5, we have our main character, the unicorn, thinking that she may or may not be the last of her kind after hearing some rumors. So she is now on a journey to see whether or not those rumors are true. She just recently escaped captivity with the help of a new character, a wizard by the name of Schmidrick. So, right before chapter 5, she and Schmidrick were traveling through different towns, and in this last town, companion, the wizard Smindrick, was captured by some bandits. So, thankfully, with it being chapter 5, you have not missed too much. Although I appreciate you asking for a summary. That might be a wise thing to add at the beginning of every stream that I do. Was that a satisfactory summary for you, my dear Masked? And for those that are newer or have missed the earlier chapters, I actually upload all of my streams to a YouTube where I have my VODs playing. There, every now and then, you can get, or I upload my VODs weekly so you can catch up on anything that you may have missed. Mask says, "Thank you for summarizing. Yes, it was more than satisfactory." Well, thank you, my dear. I'm happy that I was able to satisfy you. But, with the incense lit and introductions out of the way, I shall now take a sip of water because hydration is very important, and then I will read to you chapter 5. Alright. Oh, I just saw that Mast was kind enough to follow me. Thank you so much, my dear. Your follow truly means the world to me, especially since I am so very close to affiliate. Now, chapter 5. All that Smindrick remembered later of his wild ride with the outlaws was the wind, the saddle's edge, and the laughter of the jiggling giant. He was too busy brooding over the ending of his hat trick to notice much else. Too much English, he suggested to himself. Overcompensation. But he shook his head, which was difficult in his position. The magic knows what it wants to do, he thought, bouncing as the horse dashed across a green. But I never know what it knows. Not at the right time, anyway. I'd write it a letter if I knew where it lived. Brush and branches raked his face, and owls hooted in his ears. The horses had slowed to a trot. Then to a walk. A high, trembling voice called out, "Halt, and give the password." "Damn, here we go," Jack Jingley muttered. He scratched his head with a sound like sawing, raised his voice, and answered. "A short life and a merry one, here at the sweet greenwood, jolly comrades united, to victory plighted. Liberty," the thin voice corrected, "to liberty plighted. The L makes all the difference." thank ye. To liberty plighted, comrades united. Nah, I said that. A short life and a merry one, jolly comrades. Nah, that's not it. Jack Jingley scratched his head again and groaned. Liberty plighted. Give me a little help, will ye? All for one and one for all, the voice said obligingly. Can you get the rest yourself? All for one and one for all. It's the giant shouted. All for one and one for all. United we stand, divided we fall. He kicked his horse and started on again. An arrow squealed out of the dark, sliced a wedge from his ear, nicked the horse of the man riding behind him, and skittered away like a bat. The outlaws scattered to the safety of the trees, and Jack Jingley yelled with rage. "Don ye eyes, I gave the password 10 times over. Let me only get my hands on ye." "We changed the password while you were gone, Jack," came the voice of the sentry. "It's too hard to remember." "Ah, ya changed the password, did ye?" Jack Jingley dabbed at his bleeding ear with a fold of Schmendrick's cloak. "And how was I supposed to know, ye brainless, tribeless, lipless idiot?" "Don't be mad, Jack," the sentry answered soothingly. "You see, it doesn't really matter if you don't know the new password, because it's so simple. You just call like a giraffe. The captain thought of it himself. Call like a giraffe." The giant swore till even the horses fidgeted with embarrassment. "Ye ain't any. A giraffe makes no sound at all. The captain might as well have us call like a fish or a butterfly." "I know that nobody can forget the password, even you. Isn't the captain clever?" "There's no limits to that man," Jack Jingley said wonderingly. "But see here, what's to keep a ranger or one of the king's men from calling like a giraffe when ye hail him?" "Ah," the sentry chuckled. "That's where the cleverness of it is. You have to give the call 3 times. 2 long and 1 short." Jack Jingley sat silent on his horse, rubbing his ear. 2 long and 1 short, he sighed presently. "Ah, well, 'tis no more foolish than the time he'd have no password at all, and shot any who answered the challenge. 2 long and 1 short. Right." He rode on through the trees, and his men trailed after him. Voices murmured somewhere ahead, sullen as robbed bees. As they drew nearer, Schmendrick thought he could make out a woman's tone among them. Then his cheek felt firelight, and he looked up. They had halted in a small clearing where another 10 or 12 men sat around a campfire, fretting and grumbling. The air smelt of burned beans. A freckled, red-haired man, dressed in somewhat richer rags than the rest, strode forward to greet them. "Well, Jack," he cried, "who is't you bring us, comrade or captain?" Over his shoulder he called to someone, "Add some more soup, water to the soup, love. There's company." "I don't know what he is myself," Jack Jingly rumbled. He began to tell the story of the mayor and the hat, that he had hardly reached the roaring descent upon the town when he was interrupted by a thin thorn of a woman who came pushing through the ring of men to shrill, "I'll not have it, Cully. The soup's no thicker than sweat as it is." She had a pale, bony face with fierce, tawny eyes and hair the color of dead grass. "And who's this lout?" she asked, inspecting Schmendrick as though he were something she had found sticking to the sole of her shoe. "He's no townsman. I don't like the look of him. Slit his wizard." She had meant to say either wizened or gizzard, and had said both, but the coincidence trailed down Schmendrick's spine like wet seaweed. He slid off Jack Jingly's horse and stood before the outlaw captain. "I am Schmendrick the magician," he announced, swirling his cloak with both hands until it billowed feebly. "And you, truly, the famous Captain Cully of the Greenswood, boldest of the bold and freest of the free." A few of the outlaws snickered, and the woman groaned. "I knew it," she declared. "Got him, Cully, from gills to gilt, before he does you the way the last one did." But the captain bowed proudly, showing an eddy of baldness on his crown, and answered, "That am I. He who hunts me for my head shall find a fearful foe, but he who seeks me as a friend may find me friend enow." "How do you come here, sir?" "Oh, I see the mast had said something. You had not missed too much, my dear. There was just, traveling dialogue. For them, they have now reached the bandit captain. And King Crazy also says, 'Hello, Faye. It's like way too long since I was here. It's good to be back. Thank you, my dear. It's wonderful to see you again.' Now, where was I? here we are. How do you come here, sir? On my stomach, said Schmendrick, and unintentionally, but in friendship nonetheless. Though your Lee-man doubts it, he added, nodding at the thin woman. She spat on the ground. Captain Cully grinned and laid his hands warily along the woman's sharp shoulders. Ah, that's only Molly Crew's way, he explained. She guards me better than I do myself. I am generous and easy, to the point of extravagance, perhaps. An open hand to all fugitives from tyranny. That's my motto. It is only natural that Molly should become suspicious, pinched, dour, prematurely old, even a touch tyrannical. The bright balloon needs the knot at one end, Molly? But she's a good heart, a good heart. The woman shrugged herself away from him, but the captain did not turn his head. You are welcome here, Sir Sorcerer, he told Schmendrick. Come to the fire and tell us your tale. How do they speak of me in your country? What have you heard of dashing Captain Cully and his band of free men? Have a taco. So, in regards to that specific statement, there was a lot of question in the movie adaptation about what the man had said. People were surprised to think that he had said have a taco due to the rather medieval nature of the story. And it was quite amusing when I first read through the book to realize that he did actually say have a taco. But aside from that, Schmendrick accepted the place by the fire, graciously declined the gilded morsel, and replied, I have heard that you are the friend of the helpless and the enemy of the mighty, and that you and your merry men lead a joyous life in the forest, stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. I know the tale of how you and Jack Chinkley cracked one another's crowns, quarter staves, and became blood brothers thereby. And how you saved your Molly from marriage to the rich old man father had chosen for her. In fact, Schmendrick had never heard of Captain Cully before that very evening. But he had a good grounding in Anglo-Saxon folklore, and he knew the type. And of course, he hazarded, there was a certain wicked king. Haggard, rot and ruin him, Cully cried. There's not one here but's been done wrong by old King Haggard, driven from his rightful land, robbed his rank and rents, skinned out of his patrimony. They live only for revenge. Mark you, magician, and one day Haggard will pay such a reckoning. A score of shaggy shadows hissed assent, but Molly Grew's laughter fell like hail, rattling and stinging. Mayhap he will, she mocked, but it won't be to such chattering cravens he'll pay it. His castle rots and totters more every day, and his men are too old to stand up in armor. But he'll rule forever for all Captain Cully dares. Schmendrick raised an eyebrow, and Cully flushed radish red. You must understand, he mumbled. King Haggard has this bull. Ah, the red bull? The red bull, Molly hooted. I tell you what, Cully, after all these years in the wood with you, I've come to think the bull's not but the pet name you give your cowardice. If I hear that fable once more, I'll go down to old Haggard myself, and know you for enough, Cully roared. Not before strangers. He tugged at his sword, and Molly opened her arms to it, still laughing. Around the fire, greasy hands twiddled dagger hilts, and longbows seemed to string themselves. But Schmendrick spoke up then, seeking to salvage Cully's sinking vanity. He hated family scenes. They sing of the ballad of you in my country, he began. I forgot just how it goes. Captain Cully spun like a cat, ambushing its own tail. Which one? He demanded. I don't know, Schmendrick answered, taken aback. Are there more than one? Aye, indeed, Cully cried, glowing and growing as though pregnant with his pride. Willie Gentle, where is that lad? A lank-haired youth with a lute and pimples shambled up. Sing one of my exploits, the gentleman, Captain Cully ordered him. Sing the one about how you joined my band. I've not heard it since Tuesday last. The minstrel sighed, struck a chord, and began to sing in a wobbly countertenor. Oh, it was Captain Cully, I'm riding home from slaying of the King's gay deer. When whom should he spy but a pale young man came drooping over the lea? What news, my pretty young man? What ails ye that ye sigh so deep? Is it for the loss of your lady fair, or are you but shabbit in your grief? I am nae shabbit, whatever that means, and my keep is as well as a keep may be. But I do sigh for my lady fair, whom my 3 brothers had riven from me. I am Captain Collie of the sweet greenwood, and the men at my call are fierce and free. If I do rescue your lady fair, what service will ye render me? If ye do rescue my lady fair, I will break your nose, ye silly walk. But she wore an emerald at her throat, which my 3 brothers also took. Then the captain was gone to the 3 bold thieves, and he's made his sword bathe to shiver and sing. Ye may keep the lass, but I'll have the stain, for it's fit for the crown of a royal king. Oh, I just noticed there was a first-time chat from Starcomma. Thank you. Now comes the best part, Lee whispered to Smendrick. He was bouncing eagerly on his toes, hugging himself. Then it's 3 cloaks off, and it's 3 swords out, and it's 3 swords whistling like the tea. By the faith of my body, says Captain Coley, now ye shall have neither the stain nor she. And he's driven them up, and he's driven them down, and he's driven them to and fro like sheep. Like sheep, Cully breathed. He rocked and hummed and parried 3 swords with his forearms for the remaining 17 stanzas of the song. Rapturously oblivious to Molly's mockery and the restlessness of his men, the ballad ended at last, and Schmendrick applauded loudly and earnestly, complimenting Willie Gentle on his right-hand technique. I call it Elena Dale picking, the minstrel answered. He would have expounded further, but Cully interrupted him, saying, Good, Willie, good boy. Now play with the others. He beamed at what Schmendrick hoped was an expression of pleasant, pleased surprise. I said there are several songs about me. There are 31, to be exact, though none are in the child's collection just at present. His eyes widened suddenly, and he grasped the magician's shoulders. You wouldn't be Mr. Child himself, now would you? He demanded. He often goes seeking ballads, so I've heard, disguised as a plain man. Schmendrick shook his head. No, I'm very sorry, really. The captain sighed and released him. It doesn't matter, he murmured. One always hopes, of course, even now, to be collected, to be verified, annotated, to have variant versions, even to have one's authenticity doubted. Well, never mind. Sing the other songs, Willie, lad. You'll need the practice one day when your field recorded. hydration break. The outlaws grumbled and scuffed, kicking at stones. A hoarse voice bawled from the safe shadow. "Now, Willie, sing us a true song. Sing us one about Robin Hood." "Who said that?" Cully's loosened sword clacked in its sheath as he turned from side to side. His face suddenly seemed as pale and weary as a used lemon drop. "I did," said Molly. "Who hadn't?" "The men are bored with ballads of your bravery, Captain, darling, even when you did write them all yourself." Cully winced and stole a side glance at Schmendrick. "They can still be folk songs, can't they?" "Mr. Child?" he asked in a low, worried tone. "After all—" "I am not Mr. Child," Schmendrick said. "Really, I'm not. I mean, you can't leave epic events to the people. They get everything wrong." An aging rogue in tattered velvet now slunk forward. "Captain, if we're to have folk songs, and I suppose we must, then we feel they ought to be true. Songs about real outlaws, not this lying life we live. No offense, Captain, but are really not very merry when all's said." "I'm merry 24 hours a day, Dick Fancy," Cully said coldly. "And that is a fact." "And we don't steal from the rich and give to the poor," Dick Fancy hurried on. "We steal from the poor because they can't fight fair, most of them. And the rich take from us because they could wipe us out in a day. We don't rob the fat, greedy mayor on the highway. We pay him tribute every month to leave us alone. We never carry off proud bishops and keep them prisoner in the woods, feasting and entertaining them, because Molly hasn't any good dishes. And besides, we just wouldn't be very stimulating company for a bishop. When we go to the fair in disguise, we never win at the archery or at singlestick. We do get some nice compliments on our disguises, but no more than that. I sent a tapestry to the judging once, Molly remembered. It came in fourth, fifth, and night at vigil. Everyone was doing vigils that year. Suddenly, she was scrubbing her eyes with her horny knuckles. "Darn you, Cully." What? He yelled in exasperation. Is it my fault you didn't keep up with your weaving? Once you had your man, you let all your accomplishments go. You don't sew or sing anymore. You haven't illuminated a manuscript in years. And what happened to that viola di gamba I got you? He turned to Smindrick. We might as well be married, the way she's gone to seed. The magician nodded fractionally and looked away. As for righting wrongs and fighting for civil liberties, that sort of thing, Dick Fancy said, it wouldn't be so bad. I mean, I'm not the crusader type myself. Some are and some aren't. But then we have to sing those songs about wearing Lincoln green and aiding the oppressed. We don't, Cully. We just turn them in for the reward, and those songs are just embarrassing, that's all. And there's the truth of it. Captain Cully folded his arms, ignoring the outlaw's snarls of agreement. Sing the songs, Willie. I'll not. The minstrel would not raise a hand to touch his lute. And you never fought my brothers or any stone, Cully. You wrote them a letter which you didn't sign. Cully drew back his arm. The blades blinked among the men as though someone had blown on a heap of coals. At this point, Schmendrick stepped forward again, smiling urgently. If I may offer an alternative, he suggested. Why not let your guest earn his night's lodging by amusing you? I can neither sing nor play, but I have my own accomplishments, and you may not have seen their like. Jack Jingley agreed immediately, saying, Aye, Cully, a magician. 'Twould be a rare treat for the lads. Molly grumbled some savage generalization about wizards as a class, but the men shouted with quick delight, throwing one another into the air. The only real reluctance was shown by Captain Cully himself, who protested sadly, Yes, but the songs. Mr. Child must hear the songs. And so I will, Schmendrick assured him. Later. Cully brightened then and cried to his men to give way and make room. They sprawled and squatted in the shadows, watching with sprung grins as Schmendrick began to run through the old flumeries with which he had entertained the country folk the midnight carnival. It was paltry magic, but he thought it would be diverting enough for such a crew as Cully's. But he had judged them too easily. They applauded his rings and scarves, his ears full of goldfish and aces, with a proper politeness, but without wonder. Offering no true magic, he drew no magic from them, and when a spell failed, as when promising to turn a duck into a duke for them to rob, he preceded a handful of duke cherries. He was clapped just as kindly and vacantly as though he succeeded. They were a perfect audience. Cully smiled impatiently, and Jack Jingly dozed, but it startled the magician to see the disappointment in Molly Grew's restless eyes. Sudden anger made him laugh. He dropped 7 spinning balls that had been glowing brighter and brighter as he juggled them. On a good evening, he could make them catch fire. Let go all his hated skills and closed his eyes. "Do as you will," he whispered to the magic. "Do as you will." It sighed through him, beginning somewhere secret, in his shoulder blade, perhaps, or in the marrow of his shin bone. His heart filled and tottered like a sail, and something moved more surely in his body than he ever had. It spoke with his voice, commanding. Weak with power, he sank to his knees and waited to be Smedrick again. "I wonder what I did. I did something." He opened his eyes. Most of the outlaws, chuckling and tapping their temples, glad of the chance to mock him. Captain Cully had risen, anxious to pronounce that part of the entertainment ended. Then Molly Grew cried out in a soft, shaking voice, and all turned to see what she saw. A man came walking into the clearing. He was dressed in green, but for a brown jerkin and slanting brown cap with a woodcock's feather in it. He was very tall, too tall for a living man. Great bow slung over his shoulder looked as long as Jack Jingly, and his arrows would have made spears or staves. For Captain Cully, taking no notice at all of the still, shabby forms by the fire, he strode through the light and vanished, with no sound of breath or footfall. After him came others, one at a time or two together, some conversing, many laughing, but none making any sound. All carried longbows, and all wore green, save one who came clad in scarlet to his toes, and another gowned in a friar's brown habit. His feet in sandals, and his enormous belly contained by a rope belt. One played a lute and sang silently as he walked. Alanadale. It was raw, really gentle. Look at those changes. His voice was as naked as a baby bird. Effortlessly proud, graceful as giraffes, even the tallest among them, kind-eyed Blunderbore. The bowman moved across the clearing. Last, hand in hand, came a man and a woman. Their faces were as beautiful as though they had never known fear. The woman's heavy hair shone with a secret, like a cloud that hides the moon. "Oh," said Molly Grew, "Marion." "Robin Hood is a myth," Captain Cully said nervously. "A classic example of the heroic folk figures synthesized out of need. John Henry is another. Men have to have heroes, but no man can ever be as big as the need. And so a legend grows around a grain of truth, like a pearl. Not that it isn't a remarkable trick, of course." It was the seedy dandy Dick Fancy who moved first. All the figures but the last two had passed into the darkness when he rushed after them, calling hoarsely, "Robin, Robin, Mr. Hood, sir, wait for me." Neither the man nor the woman turned, but every man of Captain Cully's band, saving only Jack Jingley and the captain himself, ran to the clearing's edge, tripping and trampling one another, kicking the fire so that the clearing churned with shadows. "Robin," they shouted, "and Marion, Scarlet, Little John, come back, come back." Schmendrick began to laugh, tenderly and helplessly. Over their voices, Captain Cully screamed, "Fools, fools and children. It was a lie, like all magic. There is no such person as Robin Hood." But the outlaws, wild with loss, went crashing into the woods, over the shining archers, stumbling over logs, falling through thorn bushes, wailing hungrily as they ran. Only Molly Crew stopped and looked back. Her face was burning white. "Nay, Cully, you have it backward," she called to him. There's no such a person as you or me or any of us. Robin and Marion are real, and we are the legend." Then she ran on, crying, "Wait, wait," like the others, leaving Captain Cully and Jack Jingley to stand in the trampled firelight and listen to the magician's laughter. Schmendrick hardly noticed when they sprang on him and seized his arms, nor did he flinch when Cully pricked his ribs with a dagger, hissing, "That was a dangerous diversion, Mr. Child, and rude as well. You could have said you didn't want to hear the songs." The dagger twitched deeper. Far away he heard Jack Jingley growl, "He's na Child Cully, nor is he any journeyman wizard neither. I know him now. He's Haggard's son, the Prince Lear, as foul as his father, and doubtless handy with the black arts. Hold your hand, Captain. He's no good to us, dead. Cully's voice drooped. Are you sure, Jack? He seemed such a pleasant fellow. Pleasant fool, you mean? Aye, Lear has that air, I've heard tell. He plays the normless innocent, but he's the devil. Deception. The way he gave out to be this child cove just to get you off your guard. I wasn't off my guard, Jack, Cully protested. Not for a moment. I may have seemed to be, but I'm very deceptive myself. And the way he called up Robin Hood to fill the lads with longing and turn them against you. Ah, but he gave himself away at that time, and now he'll bide us through his father, send the Red Bull to free him. Cully caught his breath at that, but the giant snatched up the unresisting magician for the second time that night and bore him to a great tree, where he bound him with his face to the trunk and his arms stretched around it. Schmendrick giggled gently all through the operation and made matters easier by hugging the tree as fondly as a new bride. There, Jack Jingley said at last, do ye guard them the night, Cully, whiles I sleep? And in the morning it's me to old Haggard to see what his boy's worth to him. Happen we'll all be gentlemen of leisure in a month's time. What of the men? Cully asked worriedly. Will they come back, do you think? The giant yawned and turned away. They'll be back by morning, sad and sneezing, and you'll have to be easy with them for a bit. They'll be back, for they'm not the sort to trade something for nothing, no more than I am. Robin Hood might have stayed for us, if we were. Good night to ye, Captain. Sometimes speaking the slang is a little difficult. There was no sound of when he had gone, but crickets and Schmendrick's soft chuckling to the tree. The fire faded and Cully turned in circles, sighing as each ember went out. Finally he sat down on a stub and addressed the captive magician. Oh, Gang Crazy says you were doing well with the slang, though. Well, thank you, my dear. Haggard's son you may be, he mused, and not the collector child, as you claim. But whoever you are, you know very well that Robin Hood is the fable and I am the reality. No ballads will accumulate around my name unless I write them myself. No children will read of my adventures in their school books and play at being me after school. And when the professors prowl through the old tales and scholars sift the old songs to learn if Robin Hood ever truly lived, they will never, never find my name. Not till they crack the world for the grain of its heart. But you know, and therefore I'm going to sing you the songs of Captain Gully. He was a good, gay rascal who stole from the rich and gave to the poor. In their gratitude, the people made up these simple verses about him. Whereupon he sang them all, including the one that Willie Gentle had sung for Smindred. He paused often to comment on the varying rhythm patterns, the sonatal rhymes, and the modal melodies. And that concludes Chapter 5 of Peter S. Beagle's The Last Unicorn. Now, before I finish, I actually wanted to do something a little different. So, in keeping with our theme, I have some oracle cards here that I have not worked with all too much. I thought it would be fun if I pulled a card for us to end on. And that's why I lit a cleansing incense at the beginning of all this. And this is the Unicorn Oracle card deck, where every single card is unicorn inspired. Now, I am not as versed in this deck, so I think this would be fun to try out. Let me just pull out the little information pamphlet. And here we go. So it is said that it is good for you to try and touch every single card in one way or another to get all of your power into it. So I will shuffle the cards and pull from the top. As this is a thicker cardstock, I cannot quite fold them to shuffle as I would with a gaming deck of cards, but it should do the trick. And I will focus on us and what I should send you off as I shuffle. Now I will pull from the deck, and that will be what I will leave us off on. So this is the card that I felt compelled to pull. Let us see what was given, and whether or not you take this seriously or not is up to you, because at the very least, you get to see beautiful artwork. Oh, how cute. So I pulled not a barn owl. The oracle card for wisdom. Now let me grab my pamphlet. So this is card number 6. And the information says, transformation. The call of the owl invokes the great question that is the key to all wisdom. Who, who are you? As you meditate on the sound, traversing the path in the darkness of night, with your way lit only by the moon, suddenly a great form swoops before you in a gust of wind with a mighty force. You jump back as you realize this is the fabled unicorn owl. Meditation. Fly along the wings of the unicorn owl and see through her eyes. In the darkness, she sees all. And 360 degrees in a circle with no limitation. Allow your gaze to expand as you scan the horizons in search of wisdom. What do you see? Breathe deeply and expand your knowledge. Affirmation. I am the embodiment of wisdom. I know who I am. Action. Mirror work is so important. Take some time to gaze in the mirror as you echo the call of the unicorn owl. And ask yourself, who? Look deep in your own eyes, searching for the answer. You are wiser and stronger than you know. So, that was quite fitting of a pool, actually, considering that this is a theme found within the book. How convenient. The knowledge of who you are, truly knowing who and what you are, is within the book, and so a fitting pool. Another fun fact is that it's said to be good for you to place the last of your pools facing up on your deck, and so that is what I will do. Game Crazy says, there is no such thing as coincidence. Well, I tried to leave it open for whomever may be watching. But that was Pablo's Unicorns Oracle Deck. So, I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. I had a lovely time getting back into streaming. And as I had alluded to, I am so very close to affiliate. So I do think I only need around 9 more followers to finally meet the goals. But if you wish to find more of my content, I can be found on Twitter at FaeWorks. I am also found by that name or by my true name, FaeNet, on many different platforms, such as my coffee right up here. And I technically have a throne, but it's more of a wish list for myself that I have as a universal grouping. But on my Twitter, you can find links to all of my socials, including my YouTube channel, where I upload all of my VODs every week, and even my Etsy shop, where you may find some beautiful artwork and sculptures, even some art dolls available. I have even gotten into creating VTubing models, and I have one up for sale right now on my Etsy shop. In fact, there is a summer sale going on right now, so if you wanted to pick up some artwork cheaper, you can find me at my Etsy shop there. As I said before, all of my socials can be found on my Twitter at Fae_works. Oh, King Crazy says, I recently bought The Wary Bride. Yes, he did. I have digital and physical copies of many of my works available. It's for the convenience you. But with that said, I want to thank you all so very, very much for joining me today. And in exciting news, I should have my model completely rigged soon. It has been a little bit of time, but the rigging should be finished soon. And so hopefully I will be able to debut as a full VTuber within maybe a month or so. It just kind of depends on scheduling and planning. So, until then, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining me. Now, let me see if there's anyone that is still streaming. I see. Oh, a newer person I've been following is Walker Sunrise. Let me see if I can raid him. Oh, perfect timing, Game Crazy. Let me see if I can properly do this. Alright, and we'll be raiding Walker Sunrise shortly. Oh, Radiant Ayumi, thank you so much for joining me. I'm glad I was able to bring you some relaxation. Star Karma says, I've enjoyed my stay, Faye. Thank you for the relaxing stream. Well, thank you for blessing me with your presence. I should be streaming the next chapter within the next couple of days. And as I said before, if you wanted to watch all the rest of them, I have my YouTube channel, which I upload to every week. Alright, and now we raid. we end the stream. Thank you all so much for joining me. Ta-ta.